Congratulations! You've reached Module 4. You're ready to design learning opportunities and complete your first Understanding by Design single content area grade level lesson. So our objectives for Module 4 are to design those learning opportunities, those things that kids do, the activities that help them practice and learn the objective and prepare for the assessments you've designed for that objective. It's important to remember that these learning opportunities should still align, that is, match with the verbs you used in your objectives and your assessments. Your other objective for this module will be to use the where to, which is part of the Understanding by Design methodology, criteria to self-assess your lesson design. And we'll talk about both those things when we get in. Your tasks for this module are to read, watch, and use all the resources provided, and to continue your work from Module 2 and 3 on the same lesson design template, creating those learning opportunities for students. After you've created that third stage of the lesson design and you look back on it, use that where to criteria to check your work, and then again submit it. As is the process, anything you turn in by 9 o'clock in the morning, I will get back to you that day. And remember, we want to have that first attempt in by the due date, and then you and I can have conversations about it if we need to go past that due date. So let's go ahead and look at Module 4. Again, you'll find the checking for understanding, the designing learning opportunities slides, which I'm going to talk about in just a second, an example, my example, the one we've been working on over the past modules. There's another example here, which is a real student's example, one of your colleagues who completed this course in the past, the where to criteria, and then the place to submit your final lesson design. This is the final activity, your final assignment for this section of the course. So let's look at how we move from Stage 2 assessments to learning opportunities in Stage 3. So we remember when we were talking about these on these slides before, we had those objectives that are written, that are broad and reusable and written in kid and family friendly language. And then we had a couple of assessments where I wanted them to create an infographic, or they had some choice about what they were going to create. And they had to, the point of this creation was for me to be able to assess whether they really could explain the value of community service. And then we had this part where they were going to work together as a team. The Understanding by Design form sort of has Stage 1 on the left and Stage 2 on the right, and then Stage 3 at the bottom. Let's look at that in a more linear format so we can see how it looks. So this is in a more linear way to think about it. We have the objectives on the far left, our two objectives. Then those two assessments we've already looked at. There's two more pieces to a good Understanding by Design lesson, and the third, that far fourth column, you're not responsible for this part of the course, but I put it here so you can start thinking about it. Those are differentiations, and we'll talk about those in 621B. But what we need to focus on right now is these learning opportunities, this third column right here. So we need to, when we design learning activities, opportunities to learn, we need to really focus on how I, as the teacher, can design and offer opportunities for the kids to learn and practice those objectives and prepare for the assessments. So knowing that my assessments are going to be choosing this topic of interest, choosing tasks and products, choosing leaders to meet these objectives, here's my first learning opportunity. As a group, where we'll review the processes of cooperative groups and how to reach consensus. This is something I've theoretically taught them in the past, but I'm going to review it because we always want to make sure that we're making sure kids know what to do. So that's the first opportunity they're going to have. This is the first activity we're going to do with this lesson, is we're going to review what happens in a group. Then the next thing I'm going to have them do is to work in cooperative groups. That's an instructional strategy. In their group, they're going to collaborate and reach consensus to choose a topic. What's their community service topic? They're going to choose their leaders of the group, and they're going to choose the type of products from a choices wheel. And you'll see some of this in the resources. So this is going back to this idea here of they're going to choose tasks and products. I had said they could, down here, choose an infographic, video, or web page. So here we're going to have where they're going to choose that product that's coming down here in this assessment. So again, we're building up, we're giving them opportunities to choose, but they're also working on this objective, building consensus, solving problems, resolving conflicts, and practicing for this assessment. The next one, they're going to use cooperative groups as my instructional strategy. They're going to collaborate and use previously practiced skills to solve problems and resolve conflicts. So here we're practicing these objectives and preparing for this assessment. My next objective was to be able to talk about community service. Name kinds of community service and talk about community service. So, and I wanted them to create this product, this infographic, this video, or this web page. So, in their group, they're going to research and discuss their chosen topic, right? So, by doing this, they're getting ready for this idea that they can tell me what community service is. They're getting ready to talk about the value of community service, because if they're choosing it, they're valuing it. Then they're going to plan, design, and create their product. They're going to do self-assessment, and they're going to do peer assessment. I've included this in here also because sometimes, and you'll find as you do more and more of this, assessments are also opportunities to learn. They're rather iterative. So sometimes you'll find that you have things as assessments that are also opportunities to learn. So all of this addresses this idea of naming community service and valuing community service. So you can see how this all builds. If this is my objective, this is how I'm going to assess it. What are kids going to do to learn and practice? Right, so we want to have this sort of linearity, this alignment. Okay. What does this look like when I put it back on the template? So we've got the stage 1. These are the objectives I started with. We've seen those before. Then my assessments here. And then stage 3, we want to think about the hook. Okay, so the hook means how do I engage the students? What am I going to do to make them go, what? Wow, this is interesting. I want to do this. How am I going to make it relevant to them? So my hook for this is, what would you do to make Juneau a better place to live? And how could you make these things happen? So this is my hook. Sometimes it's just a question. Then I've got my processes and products. These are the things they're going to do and make. And these are the same things that were in this column, this third column on the previous page. This other column is for differentiations, accommodations, which are not required to do for this section of the course. But these are these on this far side. What can I have, where can I offer more choice? Where can I have kids work at their own level? Where are different entry points and exit points for kids? Okay, but you're not required to do that. If you want to make an attempt at it, you certainly can. Then I want to think about closure. How am I going to wrap this up? And so for this lesson, I'm going to use exit cards, which is basically a way for kids to pay for their recess. And they maybe would do a sticky note, or if I have some sort of bring your own device, they could text to me. In any case, I'm going to ask them, how can I make Juneau a better place? And they're going to respond to that on their way out to recess. And that's another formative assessment for me to see how the lesson went. Anything that's here in red is not required for this section of the course, but you are certainly willing to give it a try. What you are required to turn in for this last part of this assignment is this process, stage 3, the introduction, your learning opportunities, your processes and products, and your closure. You do have included in your module some other resources that will help you do this. One of the ones that you have is this example. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So you can see my example of a completed lesson design. So again, we have all the information at the top that you've already done, the Alaska Standard written out, my objectives, my assessments, and you can see my hook, my opportunities. All this whole stage 3 is opportunities to learn. So the hook, the processes, products, and closure are all opportunities to learn. Remember, this differentiation is not required for this section of the course, nor is this the relevance and the artifacts, obviously. But I do want you to have a hook and a closure. Think of it as an intro and an outro, bringing them in and sending them out. Beginning, a middle, and end. That hook and that closure is really, especially the closure, and I want you to be very explicit about your closure, because when we do start teaching as beginners and even as advanced teachers, that closure often gets forgotten because we're in a hurry and we've run out of time. So please make sure that you include that. So I want to take a quick look and see what else you have here as resources. So I said there's another example here for you of a student work, and here's your place where you turn in your assignment. Let's look at this where to really quickly. This is from the Understanding by Design method, and these are the things you check for when you write a lesson plan. The where to comes through on the left there. So W, how will you help your students know where they are headed, why they are going there, and what ways will they be evaluated along the way? So these are things like your objectives and your assessments. You want your students to know, what are they doing, why are they doing it, how are they doing it, okay? The H, how will you hook and hold? That is your hook. How are you going to get interest and enthusiasm and make it relevant and important to them? E, what experiences will you provide? And this is where those learning opportunities happen. What experiences, what practice are you going to give them? What opportunities to learn are you going to give them? R, how will they have time to reflect, revisit, revise, and rethink? In that lesson we just looked at, they were doing some self and peer assessment. So that would be one place where they would reflect, revisit, revise, and rethink. E, how are they going to express understandings and engage in meaningful self-evaluation? Okay, I had the self-evaluation piece in that lesson. How will you tailor, differentiate your instruction? Not required for this section, but start thinking about it. What are strengths or weaknesses of your students, and how are you going to work that into your lesson? And then O, how are you going to organize learning? Remember in my lesson, I reviewed cooperative groups first, so I wanted to make sure they remembered that. So there's a structure to your learning opportunities. You can't assume that kids know how to do things, so make sure you have enough structure so that they're building up to where you want them to be. You don't need to do anything formal with this piece. It's a self-evaluation for you, just like we talked here about self-evaluation for the kids, and I want you to self-evaluate a little bit in the process. You do not need to turn this in. Again, this is for your self-evaluation. So then you turn in your final complete 15 to 40 minute single content area lesson design right here at the bottom, and then checking for understanding. This is the final assignment for this section of the course. However, many students choose to use this single content area lesson as the foundation or basis for their integrated unit lesson that we're going to start in 621B. If you have any questions, send an email or a tweet to your instructor.